So you know how we would always open these podcasts with a little comedy bit. I mean, we don't do it all the time anymore. Now we just kind of riff and say hello. But for the first couple years of the show, we used to open every episode with a little comedy bit. Well, I hate this track so much that I'm like, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. This track
is just burying the lead.
No. This track is so
or the
awful.
Opposite of that.
Yeah, this track is so awful that it makes me think it puts me off to the idea of little comedy bits altogether. So I'm like, there's nothing we can do. No. So
well, episode over.
Yep.
Oh, hey, good morning, Timpani. Hey, you know what? I just wanted to thank you for this amazing breakfast. The scrambled eggs and cinnamon toast. Delicious.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sadie Hawkins' Pod.
Hello. Hope you're all enjoying your breakfast. Those of you that listen to us while you're enjoying your breakfast.
You're just diving right in.
I guess so. This 2-week schedule really throws me off. I'm like, how do we start an episode? What do we do?
Right, because we start the Patreons differently.
That's right.
Speaking of Patreons, we were guests over on Church Jams Now.
Well, yeah.
Their
they
Patreon
did a trivia
live stream thing.
Right, it was like a trivia night.
Yeah.
That for like the patrons were invited to, and they invited all their previous guests as well. And we showed up, and then we won.
Yeah. So for everybody out there who's like, you're not Christian enough, hey, we won the Church Jams Now trivia night.
Very few of the questions were actually based around Christian music. They were. There was one section where it was like, finish these lyrics.
And those were all Christian-based songs.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So that was a good time.
Was this song inspired by the breakfast song by whoever that was by? I had not heard that song before. Is that DC Talk Newsboys? I don't know.
They don't
serve breakfast in hell.
Oh, they play. Yeah, that's right. They played the part of Newsboys Don't Serve Breakfast in Hell. Jessica had never heard that. That's a good point. We can bring up that song if we want to talk about a better bad song. This isn't even a song this week. We could talk about the Newsboys. They Don't Serve Breakfast in Hell. I'm sure that's not the name of the song. What's the song called? The Newsboys is a band that I never really listened to, but it's called Breakfast. But, I was always familiar with their existence.
You know what would be?
You never heard this song?
No. You know what would be a way more badass song?
What?
It would be, I Hope They Serve Breakfast in Hell. It's like a Motley Crue song or something. I don't know. It's about going around picking up chicks.
Breakfast is your heroin.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, how's a pregnancy report, Jessica? How's it going? How you feeling?
Going good. We have an ultrasound tomorrow. I've just been really tired. Taking lots of naps.
Well, you told me something important about this week for the baby's development inside you.
Oh, that's right. The baby can now hear Danny's voice as well.
Yeah, so the baby is listening to...
I'm sure he's heard April's barking because it says they can hear like loud noises. So I'm sure that he's already familiar with my voice and April's.
So the baby's listening to the podcast right now.
Oh, that's true.
So we need to make this a good episode. If the baby's going to keep listening, and I don't feel like we're up to snuff yet.
This is where we have to turn the corner.
Yeah, I feel like we're still just warming up tonight, but we need to do a really good job if we're going to keep this baby subscribed to his parents' podcast. He's like, oh no, they're recording again. I listened to that Breakfast at Timpani's episode, and that was not that good.
Do we have any top of the show business?
We do. We do have a voicemail.
Nice.
And it is from a new caller.
Hey guys, my name is James. I found the pod a couple weeks ago and have kind of been binge listening to episodes here and there, especially with my favorite album, Forget Not Slow Down. So I've heard you guys talk a lot about your theories and why you think that some of the songs are broken up, like the intros and outros, Candlelight and Flare, why it's 2 songs instead of just one. And when I first got it, that kind of drove me crazy because I would listen to it on shuffle a lot. And that made it really not a very good listening experience. So then I was like, well, because it's like this, I just won't do it on shuffle. I'll just listen to it start to finish. And I think that's the reason why, is to discourage people from listening to it on shuffle, because listening to it from start to finish is such an experience. He takes you on such a wild ride. You guys talk about the dramatic flair that Thiessen has, but it's a story from beginning to end, and you can almost go through every phase of the grief cycle, of the grief pattern, as you from start the album and go all the way to the end of the album. You even have your angry songs, like in a way Sahara has a kind of a really bitter undertone to it, but then all the way to the end. Also, I think it's really interesting, there's a theme of forget, not slow down throughout the whole entire album, that forget, not slow down, and but at the very end, it kind of flips a little bit. He says, think real slow, which is not slow down, but this is the opposite, think real slow, and don't forget that yes is yes and no is no. So the whole album, it's forget and not slow down, forget and not slow down. At the very end, it's slow down and think real slow, and don't forget that yes is yes and no is no. And I think the poetic device there, it's such an awesome experience from start to listen. So that's my theory on why it is like that, is to discourage people from listening to it on shuffle, so that way they can get the full experience. Anyway, I love the podcast, still listen to a bunch of the episodes, but talk to you guys later. Bye.
That's a really good point. I totally see how that is, like, to actually have kind of split little portions of the song off into those tracks that makes you not able to listen to it on shuffle. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how David Lynch doesn't like chapter titles and DVDs. Like, you have to experience the whole film. So, like, certain David Lynch DVDs don't have chapter selection on the movie. It's just the whole movie is one chapter. If you want to, some of them might even be locked from fast forwarding, but I don't know if that's true. I just remember The Straight Story was the first one where I was like, I put the disc in, I watched the whole movie, and then I was like, oh, I want to go back and watch that one scene. I'm like, oh, there's no chapters. And then I Googled, why are there no chapters on this DVD? And I found out that he doesn't like chapters. Anyway, that's an example of something similar, right?
Yes.
You're looking at me so bewildered.
Sorry. No. I totally agree. Yes. I was just thinking, how much of a joy it is when Breakfast at Timpani's comes up on your shuffle.
Oh my gosh.
There's a belch at the beginning of this song. It's like, why?
Are we going to get into it right away? I want to put it up where this episode's not even 10 minutes long and we're already getting into it.
Well, I'm getting into you, so let's do
anything else? Anything else to talk about? Top of the show business. I think that's a really good point. Maybe that is a really good reason why they would have had all these little tracks, is then you can't listen to it on shuffle. Well, forget them, because I'm going to not slow down and I'm going to edit together a special shuffled version.
Oh, no.
I'm going to edit the little tracks that get separated into one track. Then I'm going to shuffle that track list together. What do you think of that? What do you think of that, Relient K?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm so mad at you guys because you made Breakfast at Timpani's.
He really was. Like, Danny was like, no, this is the worst Relient K song ever. And I was like, didn't you just say that about Silly Shoes? And he's like, no, I have a point to make about that. So please, Danny.
When we did Silly Shoes, I was like, a lot of people like Silly Shoes. They enjoy it. They think it's funny. I think it's humorous. I don't think it's funny, right? Like, I was down on Silly Shoes. I just found, like, I was never totally enamored with the existence of Silly Shoes. I was familiar with the idea when I heard that track for the first time. I was already familiar with the idea of, like, goofy white guys do bad rap on purpose and you laugh. Like, I already knew that was a thing that happens before Relient K did it. But when we listened to it, I had criticisms about Silly Shoes. I was like, there's ways this could have been funnier. There's ways this could have been better. But I understand why Silly Shoes exists. There's a place for it. It should be on the album. It's a hidden track. It's there to be enjoyed if you find it. So I was down on Silly Shoes. I don't hate Silly Shoes. I just think I'm just like, yeah, it's not for me. It's ridiculous, and I don't get a lot of joy out of it. Breakfast at Timpani's is just like the worst thing that they've done. You get mad about mood rings. Well, your eyes aren't open to just how stupid this track is.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel, Dan.
It's just so weird.
And it's not even hidden.
It's not even hidden. That's the thing, is it's right in the middle of the album, right in the back half of the album.
So do you
just this little sketch, this little comedy sketch with a horrible punchline that makes no sense, and it's executed incredibly badly.
Right.
Like, I don't understand why they did this. So if you haven't heard it, it's like 18 seconds long. So it's like, maybe I just played the whole thing at the top of the show, or I played a portion of it. It's a very short sketch on a really bizarre premise. If you haven't heard it somehow, you can go listen to it. Like I said, it's 18 seconds long. But it's just like, you hear a bunch of people in like a restaurant. I gotta ask questions about that. But you hear a bunch of people, a whole group of people having a meal. And then you hear Thiessen go, "Oh, hey, Timpani, thanks for inviting us to breakfast." He says a little bit more than that. But he's like, "Thanks for inviting us to breakfast." And then you hear a Timpani go, "Boom, boom." And I'm like, what? It's so bizarre and incredibly stupid. And that's probably the idea. But it's just like, it's such a bad joke and it's not executed well. And I'm just like, I don't understand why they thought this was worth spending any time on.
I wonder if like they just went in the studio or to church one day or something and there happened to be a timpani drum there. And Thiessen was like, breakfast at Timpani's. And then he brought it to the band and they were like, sure, we'll do that.
Someone should have said no, is what they should have done.
That's actually why Brian left the band 2 albums later.
Right. So
they had been fighting over breakfast at Timpani's and the inclusion of it for years.
So this is essentially like, I mean, this is years before such a thing existed, but this is essentially like a bad tweet. This is like a tweet you leave in drafts and then you delete. This is like a bad tweet fleshed out into a little sketch. And it's so bizarre and so bad and badly conceived.
It smells like peaches, man.
Right. So we'll talk about the production and some of the details in a second. But this is like a bad idea for a tweet. Like just some like you come up with a pun, and of course Relient K is known for their pun work and their wordplay. So to say something is called breakfast at Timpani's, I'm not immediately going to think like, oh, that's a horrible pun joke right off the bat. It's just what they choose to have created with such a pun. It's just it serves no purpose. It's not going to make you laugh. It's not going to make you think it's cute. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Maybe it did make you
laugh. Maybe it made some people laugh. I actually realized that I hadn't really listened to this track because, as mentioned before, I was an early adopter of iTunes. So I just bought the songs that I liked off of this album, and anything else I just kind of left. So I definitely did not purchase this track. So I'm like, even though this was the first album I heard, I was on a busy bus on our way back from a ski trip with my church youth group. So we obviously weren't going to hear, I wasn't going to hear every single little track. It was, Sadie Hawkins' dance that really caught my attention. And this came after it at some point, and I don't know if I was still listening or not, or if I had put headphones on then. But yeah, I don't know. It's a choice.
So it's between
It's a choice.
It's track 14, and it's between My Way or the Highway, and the rest is up to you. And yeah, it's a choice. It's just so bizarre. And like, I'm not against the idea that they would do a skit in the middle of the album. Like, they've done little skits. They've had little bits on their albums. They have Buddy from Charles in Charge calling you up at the beginning of the Charles in Charge thing. They have the voicemail from Toby Mac saying a song about Marilyn Manson will never be on a go-to record.
This is worse than anything off of the self-titled. This is more embarrassing than anything off the self-titled.
I agree, actually.
Including Marilyn Manson Ain't My Girlfriend, or just My Girlfriend as it's titled on the self-titled.
And then on the next album, you have Kids on the Street, which is so much more of like a graceful and interesting and slightly artful inclusion of just here's a little snippet of some audio of Relient K talking to some random kids for a second. Like, that's an interesting interstitial. And like there were a lot of these things on, like, I loved the early records of Reggie and the Full Effect, and they did a lot of weird little sketches. There was like, you know, Drunk Guy and Drunk Girl at Get Up Kids Show. They had a lot of those talking bits and stuff. So I like the idea of having a rock album, you know, having an album. I guess rap albums have a lot of bits and skits, right? Like, that's what some of the bits and skits on the Reggie and the Full Effect albums would parody, is like rap skits. But I don't really know rap music, so I don't really know like the most famous skits and sketches and interstitial bits on rap CDs. But I know a handful of them from rock CDs, and I have no problem when those show up. It's just this one is so bizarre and so bad, and I'm like, it serves no purpose, and I'm just like, the joke doesn't land, and it's so strange. And we're going to get into the production of just how they executed this horrible Twitter draft of a joke. But yeah, I'm like, why did this happen? And so it's between My Way and the Highway, or My Way or the Highway, and the rest is up to you. And I don't even know, like, at what point they decided to make this joke into a little audio skit, and then was it a decision where it's going to go in the sequence? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the interstitial tracks and the short songs on
Forget
Not Slow Down serve a purpose,
Yeah,
as James just called up and said.
I wonder how close Relient K was paying attention to sequencing during Anatomy of the Tongue-in-Cheek.
I don't know. It's very strange. Like, there was some other stuff that we talked about, something in sequencing where there was some palate cleanser track that really like helps get you to a later song. I can't really remember it, but there is some consideration in the way they've sequenced things before. But I'm like, yeah, how much thought went into the sequencing of Anatomy?
How many people listened to this? You know, like, at, you know, between like Mark Lee Townsend and then like Goatee, etc., and said, yeah, this is good, let's leave this in there.
I'm really ragging on this track. I hope some people don't like love this track, because like I just don't like it. I don't abide by this track. Like there was some song recently we did in the last month or something where I wasn't like super up on it, and we got a comment on our YouTube video. It's like, man, you guys really just don't like the songs I like, huh? I'm like,
no.
I'm like, whatever that was. It's like, I didn't say I hated it. It was a Bird and B-side song. Hold on, let me look at the Bird and B-sides.
We have to talk about Breakfast at Timpani's, and Danny just wants you to know he really hates this song.
That's what the song I Just Want You to Know is about. It's about me wanting you to... There's so much we will have to talk about. We're not just going to rag on and pull apart this song for all that time. What was the song?
I don't know. My view on it is just that it exists. I'm like, all
It's
right,
all been done before.
It's goofy, it's whatever. But it's there, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd, but all right.
When we talked, it was Wits All Been Done Before. Like, I was like, oh, this doesn't... Wits All Been Done Before. That's another one where it's a pun that... in and of itself isn't a very, ironically, isn't like the cleverest thing. Wits all been done before instead of it's all been done before. Like, yeah, I see how that's like a thought, but it's not like, it's a good song. It's a good song, but I saw how that becomes a B-side because it's not in and of itself the most clever thing. So people will be like, wits all been done before? As a pun, it doesn't immediately present itself as, oh, I understand what you're saying. That's how Wits All Been Done Before feels to me. Like, as a pun, not everyone's going to hear the phrase Wits All Been Done Before and be like, oh, yeah, I get it. Some people are going to be like, what? And then they'll listen to the song and like, oh, yeah, I get it, okay. Someone hears Breakfast at Timpani's and you're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? You're going to be like, okay, I guess it's a breakfast with a timpani? Yeah, and that's what they execute. So the joke is... It's a pun on Breakfast at Tiffany's, which we'll talk about, but it's Breakfast at Timpani's, and a timpani is a kind of orchestral drum. So, like, the joke is they're having breakfast, and then Thiessen talks to a timpani, And then the timpani responds to him by going, boom, boom. So weird. But it presents, in the execution of the sketch, I'm left with so many questions. So let's get into that.
All right.
First of all, when the track starts, it sounds like they're at a busy restaurant. And we'll talk about the burp in a second. But listen to this crowd, right? Oops. Okay. It sounds like 20 people, right? So you say it's breakfast at Timpani's, and this isn't afforded all the thought I'm going to put into it right now, but what else do we have I got to talk about this. It's breakfast at Timpani's. Such a bizarre idea. What does that mean? You're going to get breakfast with a timpani drum.
You're putting way too much thought into this.
So what is at Timpani's? When you say at Timpani's, that's a possessive apostrophe S. So you assume you're going to Timpani's place. You're going to Timpani's house. You're going to the house that the drum owns to have breakfast at Timpani's home. I guess you could also be going to have breakfast at a restaurant that the timpani drum owns.
Maybe they're just standing outside of the Timpani's place of residence or work, and they're eating a donut and having a coffee on the street outside.
We'll talk about it. Yes, that's what the Breakfast at Tiffany's movie is about. But you hear 20 people having breakfast. So it implies to me that they're all at a restaurant. And then when Thiessen sees the timpani, he's like this.
Oh, hey, good morning, Timpani. Hey, you know what? I just wanted to thank you for this amazing...
So, I don't understand, where are they? They're at a restaurant or they're at Timpani's home? And there's a dozen people. Hold on.
Oh, jeez.
There's a dozen people
so worked
at
up.
this breakfast that Timpani is hosting. Timpani has a timpani drum has supplied this breakfast for a giant group of people. And he's saying, thank you so much for having this breakfast for us. Where? Why? Is it at the Timpani's home or is it at the Timpani's restaurant? And why are there so many people there?
You're upsetting April. She just stood up, came over, looked between the two of us, and then came and hid under my chair.
Danny's so worked up.
Why is he so worked up about this 18-second song?
It's not even a song. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think that they're at the hotel the night after In-N-Out Soul Fest, and they're eating at the buffet.
That is the thing I thought. I'm like, okay, they were in reality at the time, they're a touring band. They're a constantly touring band. They're playing hundreds of shows. Well, hundreds? They're playing 100 or more shows a year, whatever they played in 2001. So yeah, maybe Timpani is a concert promoter in the area. It's a timpani drum.
It's just
and it's thanks for playing.
Danny.
I know, but thank you for playing our festival or our Christian church. Come by and have a breakfast before you go. But now here's my next question. Why are there so many other people having this breakfast? Right? There's so many people that you hear in the background. Who are all these people? This isn't just the band. This is dozens and dozens of people. So that implies to me that Timpani has a restaurant or something, or a catering business, or this is at a hotel. Maybe this is the day after a wedding and everyone's been invited to a breakfast. But also on a sonic level, the sonic, the world that they create is so badly constructed, because just listen to this ignoring the burp, which we'll talk about. Just listen to the first few seconds of this track. Have you ever been to a restaurant where it's just...
It's very loud.
There's so many clinking utensils. I don't think I've ever been to a restaurant where it's just clinkety clink 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 clinkety clink 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 clink.
Maybe it's a loud cafeteria style place, and there are many folks here.
Yeah, I get that that's the idea, but all the people at this breakfast are just they're just not stopping. They're going so quickly with their fork and knife just the whole time. I'm glad I actually literally had a fork on the table. It's sonically, so it's like they cut and pasted these utensils on plate sound, and they just copy paste because there's so many clinkety clinkety clink 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 clink. I've never been to a real life restaurant scenario where there's this many forks and knives just flinging and flying at the exact same time. So even on a sonic level, the execution of the world that they try to create, where a sentient timpani drum invites dozens of people to a breakfast and makes them scrambled eggs and cinnamon toast. Even in this world that they've created, it's not even executed like well in and of itself. It's probably the worst production they've ever done. Like, even worse than Silly Shoes. Because my thought about Silly Shoes was it's purposefully bad beats, purposefully bad production, on top of purposefully bad rapping. And they should have done, decent beats with bad rapping, because that would be a little bit better. You don't do bad production beats and bad rapping. You do one or the other. That's the way... like a lot of successful comedy rap usually is. Like The Lonely Island, it's always really good sonically, musically, but then goofy and funny rap-wise. The Five Iron Frenzy fake rap, the Pants opera rap, it's good production, silly rap. So, Silly Shoes purposefully had bad production, bad rap. They tried to do something. They tried to fill this sonic world, this palette of just like constantly clinky, clinky, clinky. But it blows my mind how like untenable it is, and how like not like you already have this really bad joke, and then you have this bad decision to just constantly clink, 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 clink. So it's like, what is going on? How do you feel, Jess? How do you feel about Breakfast at Timpani's?
I have so many thoughts and feelings on this song, and I really hope this isn't any member of Relient K's favorite song.
Oh, no.
As it is still a song that you can listen to on their MySpace page.
What? I thought all music... Oh my gosh. I thought music got scrubbed from MySpace when they had that giant data loss, but somehow this is technically isn't even a song, is still there.
You can listen to Be My Escape Acoustic, Sadie Hawkins Dance, Africa, Don't Blink, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Therapy, Boomerang, Baby, Interstate Love Song, I'm not sure which baby that is, Witch to Bury, Us or the Hatchet Acoustic, Forget Not Slow Down, If You Want It, Down in Flames, Breakfast at Timpani's, Breakdown, When You're Around, Everything Will Be, The Thief, Crayons Can Melt on Us for All I Care,
Is it just going to be every
Pressin'
song?
On.
Slow? It's a long list.
It's a long list.
Yeah,
it might be all of their songs.
It might be all their songs. I wonder if that's
actually.
in order by like popularity. What's the order that MySpace?
Breakfast at Timpani's is very, very popular.
Then we're losing listeners left and right.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, even if you like this track, you have to admit it's a horrible idea for a joke. It doesn't make any sense. And even in the world that they try to create, it doesn't make any sense. Now, maybe there's a root cause to my incredible vitriol against this track, and that is that when I first heard it, I didn't know what a timpani was. I didn't know what a timpani or who Timpani was. Like in 2001, when this album came out, it's called Breakfast at Timpani's, and I didn't know that a timpani is a drum that goes bum bum. So when the track is called Breakfast at Timpani's, I was like, oh, that's some sort of pun on the title of Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't know who Timpani is, but I'm sure when I listen to the track, I'll figure that out. So then you hear clinkety clink 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 burp, and then you hear Thiessen say, hey, thank you for the breakfast. The scrambled eggs and the cinnamon toast, they're great. And then you hear boom boom. So I was like, what?
Why didn't you just ask Jeeves it, Dan?
I should have just asked Jeeves at the time. But to me, I just thought the boom boom, I thought that's like a rim shot like we executed this joke. So it's breakfast at Timpani's, and we thank Timpani, which I thought was like a girl's name or something. We thank Timpani for the scrambled eggs and cinnamon toast. And that's the end of the sketch. And then they do ba-dum-sh. And I was even more like, imagine like I'm already pissed off and confused and don't like this track when I know what the joke is, that it's a timpani.
And yet you didn't at the time bother Relient K and ask them what the deal with this song was.
We did.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I did. On the Electric Youth Tour, my friend Johnny actually asked Hoops, what's the deal with breakfast at Timpani's? Why is it there? But I didn't hate it back then. At the time...
What's the answer?
I'll tell you. Oh. Back then, I didn't hate the track. I was just more flabbergasted and confused by it. So my friend Johnny asks Hoops, what's the deal with breakfast at Timpani's? And he's like, yeah, we didn't really want to do that track necessarily.
Okay.
So I have offhand information from late 2001... that not everyone in the band Relient K was like, they didn't all get it either.
I feel better
confident
now.
Saying that this is just the silliest, dumbest, worst track they ever did. Honestly, this is the, you know what? And it's not like I'm playing it up for the sake of, just having more to talk about. I think I am like partially offended by the existence of this track, but in the context that we're talking about the entirety of Relient K's song and track catalog. There are worse things in the world. There are worse jokes, there are worse songs, there are worse tracks. There's bad things happening every day in the world. This is not the worst thing in the world, but I do think it is the worst single track Relient K ever recorded or did.
Well, isn't it great that we can look back now and go, wow, out of all the stuff they did, this is maybe the worst.
And that means
they're doing pretty darn good.
We've almost done 180 episodes of this show, and I don't think there's any song that like by Relient K that I'm like, that is like the worst, most offensive thing. I really hate this. I know other people have that opinion. There are people who absolutely hate, like most people hate the song Gloria. We discovered that's like probably the most reviled single song in Relient K history. When we did that track, we found references to it being like the least enjoyed Relient K song. I like that song. And I'm sure
Danny why.
And like a lot of people are mad about mood rings, and a lot of people get mad about faking my own suicide, and a lot of people don't like different more hard, their handful of more hardline Christian ideas from some of their early tracks. Totally understand, but just to me, this is the most offensive song because this is the most offensive track because it's such a bad idea for a joke executed so poorly in a way that just doesn't make any sense and so skippable. Now the belch, that's just an extra affront to the whole concept. You know what I mean? Like if the whole concept held together and the whole joke actually kind of made sense and made you laugh, then if you're offended by the burp, well, you're like, okay, you're just offended by the burp. But the whole track itself is funny. But no, the whole track itself is a bad idea and a bad joke. So the burp is just like an extra slap in the face. And I'm not someone to be like totally disgusted by a burp. But it does seem so like out of left field and so strange. And it's also rude if you're at Timpani's home or Timpani's restaurant and you just belch out loud. That's really rude. I mean, in some cultures, burping is actually an expression of this was an amazing meal. But this is definitely set in America. That's one of the few facts about the world that this track creates. Is I'm sure this is set in modern times America of 2001.
You don't know that, Danny.
I feel pretty confident in saying that. So someone just belches, and then you hear, I guess it's Teese, and you hear one of the guys in the background say it smells like cream cheese. Is that what he says?
It smells like peaches, man.
Smells like peaches, man. Every time I hear it, I swear he's saying it smells like cream cheese. But no, he says it smells like peaches, man. Also, Timpani provides this breakfast. Who cooks it? Does Timpani cook it? We don't know if this is Timpani's restaurant or Timpani's home. But who prepared the breakfast? Is it like a buffet style breakfast? Was there a wait staff to bring it by? Was it just cooked in the kitchen and then Timpani put together plates for everybody? Also a breakfast. I don't know about you. Okay, we'll move on to something else. I don't know about you, but just an order of cinnamon toast and scrambled eggs does not sound like an appealing breakfast to me. That's not what I would like for breakfast. That's like a lot of carbs. You want a tossed
salad and scrambled eggs?
Yeah, I'll have the Frasier special, please. What's your breakfast order? If you were to have breakfast at Timpani's, what would you hope Timpani would order for you?
I don't know what all Timpani has on offer, but maybe like a vegan like hash and eggs, maybe. So
okay. Like a vegan corned beef hash?
Yeah. I've had that somewhere before, and it was very good.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny. Well, Dan, does it make you feel...
Oh, well, what would I have for breakfast? I'm still thinking of breakfast at Tiffany's. What do I like for breakfast? I love breakfast burritos. Breakfast burritos are like one of my favorite things. Now, I like them a specific way. I like sharp cheddar, eggs, no beans, crispy potatoes, and maybe a little salsa, but not chunky salsa. Here in California, now most of the country, places we've lived, Florida, Chicago, where else have we lived? New Jersey, New York. A breakfast burrito is usually just eggs, potato, some sort of breakfast meat, and cheese, and that's it. And it's amazing. But for some reason here in California, they're constantly putting beans in breakfast burritos. And I'm like, that's the worst thing. That doesn't make any sense.
Ooh, no, you know what? I'd like a nice chia seed pudding.
That's lovely.
With fruit, yeah.
So Mike Herrera is also known for loving breakfast burritos. So one time I tweeted at him and I'm like, how do you feel about beans in breakfast burritos? And he was like, no. He was like, oh, gross, no. So beans in breakfast burritos, terrible idea. But for some reason here in California, they do that all the time. A breakfast burrito should just be, and we don't eat bacon anymore because we stopped eating pig years ago. We stopped eating pork. But breakfast burrito should just be breakfast meat, cheese, eggs, potato. That's all you need. And it's not like that's not traditional. It's not like that's an affront to Mexican culture or something. Because I've been to very traditional Mexican restaurants and they have a breakfast burrito and they don't put beans in the breakfast burrito except here in California.
Call us up. Let us know how you like your breakfast burritos. Dan, does it make you feel better or worse that some websites categorize this song as gospel? Yes. The most beloved gospel song, Breakfast at Timpani's.
Yes. The Gospel of Timpani.
Oh, no.
Bum, bum.
So, before we did this episode, Danny had not seen Breakfast at Tiffany's, so he really wanted to watch it.
We would have done this, we probably would have done this track like years ago, yeah. But the shadow of having to watch Breakfast at Tiffany's,
which I own on DVD, it's just not out right now. It's packed away. Yeah, but we have like
DVDs
somewhere.
In storage unit. We have DVDs under the coffee table. We have DVDs in the closet. I'm not going looking for it. I was like, at some point, and plus the thing is, like, sometimes sitting down and watching a movie like it's homework doesn't feel good. So it's like, we just never got around to doing that. So this time we were like, no, this week we're doing it. We're doing Breakfast at Timpani's. I have to watch Breakfast at Tiffany's, the movie that this title is a pun on. And I was like, oh, I've probably seen bits and pieces of Breakfast at Tiffany's. I realized I had never seen any of the movie. I had only seen the horribly racist clips that are used
in... a lot of real unfortunate things in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
I had only seen the really racist content as it's presented in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. When the Bruce Lee biopic, when he and his wife go to see Breakfast at Tiffany's and you see the racist depiction of a Japanese man in that movie and everyone's laughing at it and Bruce Lee is actually very uncomfortable and then she's like, oh, let's go. And that was like a moment for her character. It's actually kind of like a beautiful romantic moment where she's understanding like the pain of his dealing with racist views on Asians in America. So that's a very nice scene. I'd seen that scene, obviously, in that context, so I was a little prepared for the racist stuff in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but then I also realized I had seen the last 5 minutes of this movie before. I'd seen the scene in the taxi cab leading up to the very end of the movie. I'd seen that on television or something. It's a good movie. It has nothing...
Aside from the real unfortunate
except
like
for the real unfortunate
Mickey
stuff.
Rooney and a man in his 50s marrying a girl going on 14!
Well, that is very unfortunate, but it does like make sense in the context of the story, which I'll talk about in a second. But the racist stuff is just racist. It has no place in the movie. We watched a YouTube video that explained the differences between the original Breakfast at Tiffany's book written by Truman Capote and the later movie. And this YouTube reviewer the YouTube show is called Be Kind Rewind, or Be Kind Rewind, or Please.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It is a female movie reviewer. She's not on camera. It's video essay style. I'm sure if you type in Be Kind Rewind, Breakfast at Tiffany's, you'll find the video. And it's the differences between the book and the movie. And at one point in the YouTube video, she was a very good movie critic. She discussed the history of the racist stuff in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's and how some of the people involved in the movie were like, we don't need this character. Can we shoot a version where we don't have the character? But basically Mickey Rooney insisted on playing this as racistly as possible,
well as I believe
on purpose.
Yeah, it was Mickey Rooney and I think the director, they had previously been roommates at one point. No, I thought it was the screenwriter who objected to it.
Oh, okay. So I don't feel like we set up the baseline for the movie. So the title of this Relient K track is just a parody, a pun. It's just a pun on the title Breakfast at Tiffany's. It in no way relates to the content of the track. It's just like a title that everybody knows. So here's the pun, Breakfast at Timpani's, and you're having breakfast with some timpani drums. No other connection to the movie or book. No connections to Audrey Hepburn or any of that stuff. But we did watch Breakfast at Tiffany's because I felt it was just something we had to do for the podcast. And it's a movie from 1961.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like iconic images. Audrey Hepburn in her black dress with her pearl necklace. And she's standing outside of Tiffany's having a croissant and some coffee. That's literally the Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's kind of become a misnomer or a misconception that Tiffany's actually serves food. It doesn't. It's a jewelry store. And at the time when the movie came out and the book, I think people would have known, like, Tiffany's is not a restaurant. It's not a place where you get food. So to say Breakfast at Tiffany's was actually a very arresting and interesting phrase to have as a title, because it would be like, I don't know, if I said Breakfast at Home Depot, you would be like, what? What does that mean? It's like, well, let me tell you the story about Breakfast at Home Depot. You'd be like, well, you don't have breakfast at Home Depot, so let me hear what this is about. That was the idea of Breakfast at Tiffany's, but I think over time, as the title has reached more people, they don't know Tiffany's doesn't serve food. People who don't know what Tiffany's is specifically, they think, oh, you can go there to get breakfast. Anyway, 1961, and it's about Holly Golightly, right? I'm getting all this right so far. And she's just like a free New York spirit. And there's some subtext about, like, is she a sex worker? But in the movie, they make it vague. And she becomes friends with a new tenant in her New York building who definitely is, in a way, a sex worker. He's
like a sugar baby.
He's a sugar baby for a married lady in New York.
Like a decorator.
A decorator.
Yeah.
She's a rich lady with a loveless marriage. She's very rich. She pays for his apartment so he can just be in the city and she can come over and have sex with him anytime.
He's also a writer.
And he's a writer.
But he's only written one book.
He's a semi-failed writer. He published one book. So this guy, this writer who is a sugar baby to a rich married lady, moves into this building with this New York free spirit, kind of, I hate to use this phrase, but it's just in the context of today, the vernacular, the manic pixie dream girl. She's clearly like the prototype to that character in more modern
She's like the 60s
comedies.
version of that, yeah.
But I would say that Holly Golightly isn't exactly the problem of the manic pixie dream girl. Because when the phrase manic pixie dream girl in the context of like Garden State and Elizabethtown, when that was originally coined, manic pixie dream girl, the idea was, look at these movies where this very free-spirited, goofy, fun, like lovely young lady played by like a hip female actress,
like your Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, your Zooey Deschanel and stuff. Look at this hip actress who is really just there to prop up the male protagonist, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem of the quote-unquote manic pixie dream girl. That's the social thing, is actually working against the value of female stories and female characters and female representation in movies. Just like the phrase Mary Sue, though, it got like weaponized in the opposite direction, where like an actually legitimately free-spirited female character gets degraded as a manic pixie dream girl. But then you look at the character and you're like, but this character doesn't exist just to prop up the male character. You're using the phrase manic pixie dream girl wrong. That's kind of what Holly Golightly is. Yes, it's a romantic comedy and they end up together in the end, but like there is a push and a pull. She doesn't just exist to prop up the male character in this movie, but you can see how like kind of the characteristics of Holly Golightly in the original movie kind of set a blueprint for those characters like Natalie Portman in Garden State and what's her name? Kirsten Dunst in Elizabethtown. It's Kirsten Dunst in Elizabethtown, I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I haven't ever seen that movie, and I hadn't watched Breakfast at Tiffany's in a while. I keep starting to say Timpani's. I feel like I hadn't actually watched it since college, and the relationship between Holly and Paul reminded me so much of the song "Cowboy Like Me" by Taylor Swift, and I was like, I wonder if this played any sort of inspiration into that song, because they're both sort of
Probably
their own free spirit con artist types.
Right. It's a good movie. We just started to talk about it, but we'll talk about like the big sore spot in the movie is that Mickey Rooney, white actor Mickey Rooney, plays in Yellowface as a stereotype.
And he's so unnecessary.
Full stereotype.
You could completely edit him
Japanese character, and you don't need him. You don't need him at all. Nope. He literally only exists, and and this YouTube video we watched, they say he only existed in the movie for like extra laughs.
Yeah.
Like, hey, laugh at this, like, awful depiction of a Japanese American, and played by a white guy with like the buck teeth, and it's like so awful.
It's bad.
It's really bad. And it's completely unnecessary because he only exists to be like to like walk into a scene and act wacky and then leave. And you think maybe in the third act, when I won't spoil the third act just in case, but when the thing happens in the third act where they walk into the apartment and he's there, I guess I gotta spoil it a little bit, he's there with some police. And he's like, that's them. I'm not going to do the voice, but he's like, that's them. He's actually literally not needed there because they get arrested for something that has nothing to do with him. They just like involved him for no good reason in the scene just so you could see him one last time in the movie. And yeah, then we watched this YouTube video, and it goes so much deeper and worse because it was like Mickey Rooney's idea. Like, he loved playing this character, and he's like, yeah, we got to play it up and make it even more stereotypical. And just really, it's just hilarious when you just mock what the stereotypes of a Japanese person. And this is like years and years after, this is 20 years after World War II. It's like people don't need these depictions anymore. But I guess if you're raised in that climate of World War II and propaganda and anti-Japanese propaganda, then you think that stuff's funny when you saw it in Donald Duck cartoons, and you're like, it's just like people who wanted to keep minstrel shows alive for generations after it served its purpose. It's just so bad. But then it turns out in real life, Paramount. Oh, by the way, this movie's on Paramount Plus if you want to go watch it, because it is a Paramount movie. And we got a trial we had Paramount Plus for a year from T-Mobile, and it ran out right before we got this, so we got another trial with a different login. But anyway, it turns out Paramount falsely announced that they had hired an up-and-coming Japanese comedian to play the role, which almost sounds nice. Wow. And back in 1961, they're casting the role of the Japanese character with an actually Japanese actor. Like, that's so forward. Like, that's a thing that's still a problem today, where they don't necessarily cast, minorities in the roles that they deserve. Turns out it was a complete lie. Turns out the name they made up was like the words hello, goodbye. Like, arigato was one, but then it's like hello, goodbye. That's what the name translated to in Japanese. And it was a lie that they made up, and that Mickey Rooney actually went deeper with the racism, and he imagined himself as this Japanese comedian taking the role in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. And then he went on talk shows pretending to be the Japanese actor that he was portraying as the character in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Just for that, I'm not going to go to his potato fancy.
Right? He had a potato store. He had a potato restaurant here in the valley. And you can see, like...
It's called Mickey Rooney's Potato Fancy.
Fancy. And they have pictures of the menu, and it's just every type of potato. The guy was a potato.
Like it's a cart at the mall.
With a racist attitude like that, it's really surprising to learn that his career spanned 2 decades. He was the biggest box office draw from 1959 to 1960.
Sorry, it is Potato Fantasy.
I knew it. I knew it was Potato
correct.
Fantasy.
Oh, select all the bridges, verify. All right, let's go, Google. Here we go.
Here I sit, clicking on the traffic lights. The CAPTCHA, something.
Yeah, Potato Fantasy Family Restaurant. Although this person is saying that it's all fake. That he didn't have a Potato Fantasy restaurant.
What? That someone made up this joke? Well, let me see. Okay, so the second most problematic thing in the movie, I wouldn't say it's...
I don't know. Other people on Reddit are like, it's real. So...
Gotcha. I believe it's real. I don't know.
Chips and chunks.
That's a very, very good...
No, look at this. He's got there's so many, you can see so many menus online. There's no way, like, if it was only one, I'd be like, okay, somebody photoshopped that. But there's a lot.
That's a lot of work to make such a hoax. I mean, people have put a lot of work into hoaxes, but for an internet hoax like that, like, what was that big one? Like, Christ for Arms?
It was a chain restaurant.
Like, when the person made up the fake cover for Christ for Arms, and then people were like, I want to see this movie. I'm like, it is fake. This is clearly fake. Daldo, the EDM artist, who is not real either. EDM wasn't a thing in the days of VHS. This is a joke. But they only did the one image. But imagine if someone really, really wanted you to think Christ for Arms was real, and they made, like, multiple images. They made fake press kits. They made the back of the VHS box. They made, like, fake film stills.
Oh, apparently he maybe had multiple restaurants. This was a thing.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, the second most problematic thing that Jessica was also hinting at in the movie is a plot line, which in and of itself I don't think is problematic. Like, you could tell that story today, because it turns out Holly Golightly... Again,
you could not tell that story today.
Yes, you could.
In today's world?
I'm not saying I am not making a judgment that it's right or wrong. But I'm saying, like...
Not in this country.
No, this stuff still happens in this country. Maybe not the age she was. So
not
it turns out
I don't think you can get married anywhere in the U.S. under, like, 15.
I don't think that's true. I think you can get married at, like, 14 in some states in the country. So it turns out the reason why she's this free-spirited, very upper-class looking lady who's, like, cut a path for herself in life is because she left Texas, where she had been married at 13 or 12 years old.
It's 14. They said, quote unquote, going on 14. And everyone cites it as 14.
So she's 13 when she was married to this much older man played by Buddy Epson, who is the dad from the Beverly Hillbillies, which came out the year after this movie. but he comes looking for her. So her writer slash sugar daddy, sugar baby friend, like, is there to witness this, of this like ex-husband from Texas who had married her when she was 13 coming to find her. And he's actually very distraught because he's like, wow, he finds it bizarre at the time. He's like, wow, this is actually shocking to learn about my friend. And he doesn't judge her for it, but he's very quieted by it. And so you could tell he's like taking this information in. And for 1961, I found that to be a surprising take on such a bizarre story turn, for him to learn that she had been married at 13 and moved away to live in New York and like be more upper class for herself and find her own way in life. And he's quieted by it, and he doesn't know what to say and think about it. So you can see in the actor's eyes, and this is the actor who plays the guy in the movie is not very well known, but he like plays it so subdued, like, this is shocking to me, I don't know what to say, I'll be here for my friend and I'll be here for this situation. But you can tell he's very confused and quieted by it and doesn't know what to say. And then he just kind of like deals with it, and they go on being friends again after that moment in the story. It is bizarre. I am not making value judgments on whether or not it's right or wrong for a 13-year-old girl to marry like a 30-year-old guy. That's clearly wrong. It's absolutely wrong, but that's the story. That's her character background. And you can make a story of such a bizarre, bad situation and have that be the motivation for the character. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It's wrong. I'm saying it's wrong. But I'm saying for it to be in this story isn't in and of itself problematic. It's part of the story. It's part of the background of the character. And I was shocked. I had no idea that comes up in the story, especially when Holly Golightly and Audrey Hepburn, she's like sold on like posters, and pictures of her are on like accessories and women's bags and backpacks and merchandise. And then you find out that there's a second act plot thing where it turns out she had been married at 13 and ran away to start her own life in the city. I was like, what? I was shocked to learn that that's a story moment in the movie.
So most states have a minimum age range for minors with parental consent ranging from 12 to 17 years old.
Yeah, I told you.
However, California and Mississippi do not have minimum age ranges for minors to be allowed to marry with parental consent.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's so messed up. Do better, America. What are you doing? It's messed up.
I had a feeling, I've heard in recent times that like you can get married very young. I mean, Mandy Moore got married in A Walk to Remember.
She was like 17 or 18, and those were special circumstances.
I'm just joking mentioning that. But I had a feeling, and we've talked about it at some point in the past, but I'm from Massachusetts, and like one of the most shocking things, it's a very blue state, but the age of consent there is 16. And I was like, it was when I was a kid, because like when I was in high school, I'd see girls and they have like adult boyfriends, and it's like, it's legal in this state. It's like, okay, it's weird, but it's like totally legal.
Hey, adult men, why do you want to date children? It's fucked up.
It's weird.
It's fucked up.
Great, now I gotta bleep things in this episode. Thanks a lot, creepy men. Now I have to do more work editing this episode and bleep Jessica's swears.
Well, let's go ahead and take our break.
We can't end it there before the break.
Well, my laptop's battery is about to die, and so if we don't stop now, we could lose the entire episode, which might be a good thing, actually.
Breakfast at Tiffany's. Worth checking out. Just be aware of those two things.
Thank you so much for listening to Sadie Hawkins Pod. New episodes are released every other week, but you don't have to wait that long to hear more from us. You can join patreon.com/Sadie Hawkins Pod to listen to our bonus episodes every alternate week.
When you sign up, you'll get access to years of backlog episodes, including our discussions of the songs from Relient K is for Karaoke, every chapter of the book, The Complex Infrastructure, known as The Female Mind, as well as other projects and features from members of Relient K. You'll also have access to live streams of us watching fan content on YouTube and many other topics.
When you sign up, you'll receive a welcome letter with guitar picks and stickers, and by making a lifetime contribution of $60, you'll be eligible to earn a special Patreon-exclusive shirt. You'll also get thanked on every episode, like our current patrons, who include Charity, Samantha H. number 1, Samantha H. number 2, Matthew, Bjorn, Emily, Isaac, Kindle, Joshua, Daniel, Jay, Michael, Jimmy Eat Pod, This Might Be a Podcast, Tucker, and Brady.
Even if you don't want to sign up for the Patreon, you can still join the conversation by contacting us with your thoughts on this episode, your corrections, and your Relient K memories at our voicemail line 402-95-SADIE or by sending an email to sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com.
You can also visit our socials, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which are all at Sadie Hawkins Pod, where you can see the visuals we discuss on the podcast each week. And on Facebook, search for Sadie Hawkins Group to discuss our show and Relient K.
There aren't a lot of guarantees in life, but I can guarantee one thing. It's very hard to think of what to say at the end of these ad reads.
True.
And I said, what about breakfast at Tiffany's? She said, I think it's messed up she was 13.
Exactly.
So we didn't talk about that. We'll talk about it after your deep dive. But the next most important thing in relation to the phrase breakfast at Tiffany's, after the movie, after the original book, after breakfast at Timpani's, the Relient K track, the fourth most important thing is the Deep Blue Something song, Breakfast at Tiffany's, a big 90s soft rock track. That's how we're going to end the episode, because there are no covers of Breakfast at Timpani's.
Go figure.
And there are no shipping videos, and there are no derivative works by fans. But first, let's hear about your deep dive.
Well, we have song meetings, because of course we do. There's only 2, though. However, I love that on song meetings, the lyrics say, "Good morning, Tiffany," instead of Timpani. General comment, Katie Freeman on July 6, 2009 said, "First off, it's cinnamon toast, not French. And secondly, it's not Oh, okay, there we go. They're just submitting corrections. Nothing about the fact that it's Timpani and not Tiffany, though."
Yeah, I do find it odd of every decision with the Relient K track is every decision was bad. I touched on it, but scrambled eggs and cinnamon toast. French toast is a better choice for the dialogue in this. French toast
I
is
guess
a
they're
staple.
just serving cinnamon toast crunch.
That's the thing, is like, what is cinnamon toast? To me,
The
cinnamon
taste you can see.
To me, cinnamon toast is just toast that you sprinkle some cinnamon on. I guess technically you can take some cinnamon bread
You
and
put some
toast
cinnamon
it.
and sugar on it. My mom used to make it
Yeah.
for me.
Usually
when I was
it's
a
like
little
a
kid.
thicker cut piece of bread, but it's just like toast with cinnamon on it. It's not like fried in an egg batter like French toast. I think cinnamon toast is just regular
Right.
toasted bread with cinnamon, sugar, and maybe a little butter. So that's not like a great thing. I mean, cinnamon toast is nice, but I just don't think of it as like, Timpani, thank you for this amazing breakfast. Toast. It's because cinnamon toast is just toast with some extra stuff on top. French toast takes effort. French toast is beautiful. It's bread dipped in egg and then fried up. That's a breakfast staple. And there's so much you can do with French toast. You can put maple syrup on it. You can put not sour cream, whipped
I've
cream.
never once known you to order French toast.
No, you know what? I don't. I don't really get French toast and pancakes that often. It's not something I like. I don't like a big plate of carbs for breakfast. That's not my style. I don't like a lot of sugar for breakfast.
Not sweet
Yeah.
carbs anyway. You like other kinds of carbs. You'd eat a giant thing of potato fantasies for breakfast.
I know. I love hash browns. I love I love all the different kinds of potatoes that Mickey Rooney sold at his Potato Fantasy, but I don't like a big sugary carb breakfast. I've never been a big sugar breakfast guy. I when I was a kid though, I loved pancakes back then. But I get a hankering for pancakes. I get a hankering for a waffle. I get a hankering for French toast. But yeah, you've never known me to order those things because I have to have the hankering for it. Anyway, cinnamon toast. I think that was a bad choice for the little script for this. I think it should have been French toast.
Well, Toby Hawkboys on August 19th, 2010 commented, I love the belch at the beginning and the a Hirsch reaction. I swear they recently, like just today, had to have lowered the how high, low, whatever you can fly over our area.
To the Van Nuys Airport.
Or Burbank, either one, because these planes have been really low today. One set off a car alarm in the back earlier. So that's what I have for that. And then the only other thing that I have is Josh Below ranked this song number 173 out of 193 songs from his blog, Every Relient K Song Ranked, from July 2nd, 2020. So he didn't rank it quite as low as you do, Dan.
I think that his lowest is Faking My Own Suicide.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about that in that episode years ago. But can you read like the first 5 below this? Because to me, totally valid to put Faking My Own Suicide at the end of the list, especially if you have very specific thoughts on what's his name again? Josh something?
I'm not 100% sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly. Balogh.
Right. Well, he has very specific take. He has a very specific take on Faking My Own
Right.
Suicide. Makes sense to put that last. This track goes right under that one to me. So I want to know what lost even more to this track to him.
Okay. So, underneath this one, you're going to be offended by this.
Uh-oh.
Candy Hearts.
What?
Then BMI Valentine, and I'm going backwards.
No, this doesn't make any sense. Those
this
are
is
both
leading up to what this poster considers the worst. Dr. Worm.
What
Disaster.
the hell?
Gloria. Five Iron Frenzy is either Dead or Dying
No.
ska version.
No.
Five Iron Frenzy is either Dead or Dying.
This is an objectively incorrect list then.
Outro. Oasis.
What?
Benediction. Kids on the Street.
I can understand putting Benediction low because it's like, what's the point? And I don't agree with putting Kids on the Street that low. Like, yes, it's like, what do you need it for? But I think Kids on the Street actually serves a very interesting purpose on the album.
Flair, William Register, Curb,
Yeah,
Kojak,
just because you don't listen to the songs.
B-Rad.
Kojak is an amazing song.
Right. Anchorage, and then PTL, and then finally Faking My Own Suicide.
PTL is definitely not worse than...
I can agree to that.
I can understand putting Gloria lower than Breakfast at Timpani's. Like I said, that's probably the most the most
Derivative?
the most
Wait.
hated song on Collapsible Lung
Reviled?
by Reviled song overall on Collapsible Lung.
The fact that Oasis and Outro, even though they are shorter from Forget and Not Slow Down, and Flair are lower than this,
Doesn't make any sense.
No,
That makes no damn sense.
Absolutely not.
This is an objectively incorrect list. This is a flawed list.
I'm never coming back to this. I just want to say, because when I'm really hurting for content, I'll come back to this list. Never again. Never again. Because I've never really paid super close attention to this list previously, just like where these things rank in this person's list.
We reached the Breakfast at Timpani's line. There's this line that I think, like, if whatever you place below Breakfast at Timpani's, unless for some reason you really love that track, I think the standard Relient K fan who listens to that and is at the very least puzzled and not amused by it, anything you place lower than that on your list, that's the Timpani's line, and that is like, that really tells how you feel about Relient K. See, I wouldn't even, like, if I put a list together and I had to take all 200... It's like something like 200 songs on our list. If I took all 200 songs and I had to put them in order, I would do it the way we did it, where it's like you don't count Savannah and Oasis and Baby as separate tracks. You have to count that
You
as
count it
one
as
track.
the Savannah Suite.
Or you count Oasis and Savannah as one and you count Baby as another, because technically those were written as separate songs, even though they are melodically and structurally the same. But what did he list This Is the End and If You Want It separately? Don't look. That's not worth checking. I'm just saying, like...
I would imagine so.
Yeah, Candy Hearts is not worse than this track.
Candy Hearts is fun.
Candy Hearts is really fun. Candy Hearts is like self-derivative. It's a little bit of self-plagiarism. It's like it's somewhere they'd been before, but that's okay. Bands are allowed to write songs that sound the same when you put it in a context of an EP. Like, it's one thing to be like, if the next Relient K album had the same, like, retreaded the same ground again with doing nothing different, then you'd be like, yeah, I can't believe it. But if they put out an EP with a song called Candy Hearts, and it sounds like Chapstick, Chaplips, and things like Chemistry, that's a fun thing to get. That's not a problem. That's not less than Breakfast at Timpani's.
Well, Dan, what do you have for us since you don't have much? We don't even have like a fan music video where it's like stick figures and having breakfast.
I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna double check once more, but I really didn't find anything like that. I didn't try spelling Reliant with an A for anyone who. Sometimes I have to do that when I'm really hurting for covers and stuff. I double check Reliant spelled the correct way, just to see who uploaded it. Yeah, nothing's really coming up.
I can't believe we've so far recorded an hour and 9-minute episode on Breakfast at Timpani's. It shouldn't surprise me, and yet.
No, there's nothing. Well, so we don't have any covers, no videos, like, yeah, not even a slideshow, not even just a slideshow where, like, that's such a common thing that kids back in the 2000s just put together. You get a couple of JPEGs off of Ask Jeeves that represent the song, and
or
you
like,
put them
here's
in
me
a
and my
movie
friends
editor.
having breakfast one day.
Yeah. But instead, we're going to talk about Deep Blue Something, who were this band from Texas, the same place that Holly Golightly herself was from, actually.
It's true.
And you may have heard this song before. This is a super 90s. This is the 90est of 90s songs. So this song, wow. This song has 275 million regular listens on Spotify. Their second biggest song is a different version of Breakfast. Oh. It's like the earlier mix of the song from the earlier album than their big breakthrough album.
Right.
And then their third biggest. So Breakfast at Tiffany's, the classic mid to late 90s hit song, 275 million listens. The slightly earlier recorded different mix of the same song, 7.7 million monthly listeners.
Wow.
Their third biggest song, 568,000 listens. It's like not even a million.
Right.
Like, there's such a huge drop off. Halo is their second biggest. It's their third biggest track, their second biggest song. So this was a top example of a one-hit wonder. Do you remember this song at all from the 90s?
Really vaguely. Like, I feel like it would play in the grocery store and stuff when I was grocery shopping with my mom.
95. I didn't realize this was 95. I would have thought this was something like 96 or 97, and I'm usually good with remembering things from the 90s more or less. Like, because usually I can connect it to a memory of what grade was I in, and then I can figure it out from there. But for some reason, I can't place a specific memory for this song, except that this video used to play on MTV all the time, and MTV was still playing videos, so that makes sense. So it would definitely be pre, like, 2000, it would have to be the 90s, because when did MTV really stop playing videos? Probably around, they started slowing down on videos around 2001, 2002-ish. They started playing more and more non-video programming every year. But in the mid-90s, they were still playing tons of videos. The Breakfast at Tiffany's video was on MTV like 3 or 4 times a day. I saw this video a whole bunch back then in the 90s. So I heard the song a bunch, but I had no interest in this band. And I thought it was catchy at the time. But now, thinking back on it, thinking of like 90s soft rock, obnoxious, way too sugary pop rock song, I'm like, is this song worse than Breakfast at Timpani's? No, it's not. But I did listen to this song a bunch this week, and I'm like, this is really grating on my last nerve. It's so 90s, and they look so 90s in the video, especially the lead singer.
Danny,
He has
not a
those
fan of
wraparound
anything that
glasses.
has to do with Breakfast at Tiffany's.
No. How is the movie the best of the three things that we have to talk about? I would say the movie is the best thing in the movie minus Mickey Rooney
Right.
is the best thing we prepared for this episode. I would say Breakfast at Tiffany's, the song by Deep Blue Something, is the second best thing. I would say, and now we get down to the nitty gritty. What's worse, the Relient K track or the racism from the movie, which I parsed
Danny,
out?
you know
Obviously,
the
the
answer to that.
racism is worse. Yeah. So Deep Blue Something. We watched a video from what are they called? Rock Theory, Song Theory. What's the name of that YouTube channel? Hold on. Let me look it up. Keep talking so I don't have to edit. Tell the people, Jessica, what's your favorite kind of mid-90s soft rock? Like, do you like a little bit of Toad the Wet Sprocket?
I like that one song that's on the Empire Records soundtrack. Crazy Life by Todd and the Wet Sprocket is on there.
Toad and the Wet Sprocket.
Toad and the Wet Sprocket.
Todd and the Pure Book of Evil Wet Sprocket. I didn't realize there's a Toad the Wet Sprocket song on the Empire Records soundtrack. Empire Records is a very good movie.
It is.
Yeah.
So good.
I really think it is an underrated. There are very gentle, quick moments in that movie that are very touching, but you miss them. They are like so quiet and like very thoughtful that you leave most movies thinking of the big sweeping moments, but usually it's the little touches, the little character moments that are instantly forgettable, but they paint a nice picture of the movie. The two of the biggest examples I know from like Spielberg and related movies, one is Jaws, directed by Spielberg, where Brody and his kid are just like making faces at each other at the kitchen table. That serves no purpose to the story of Jaws. Most people don't immediately think of that as one of the biggest moments from Jaws, but it paints a picture of these characters and it's a nice moment. And then in Back to the Future, produced by Spielberg, there's that moment where Marty's girlfriend like looks down at while she's writing down where she's going to be at the party or something. She's writing down the phone number or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he like for a moment just kind of like leans in to sniff her hair. It's like such a forgettable moment, but it's a tiny quiet moment that really paints the picture of the world. There's a lot of little touches like that in Empire Records, and you don't think of them, but they're in there, and it paints like this picture of these characters, this found family that are all together in this like cool 90s place. It's just a very nice movie, and if you take the moment to really pay attention to it, there's a lot of fun stuff in it.
Yeah,
anyway.
Very well said.
Anyway, yeah, it was Rock and Roll True Stories is this YouTube channel I watch sometimes because he just kind of like compiles Wikipedia information about different bands. But unlike, say, a punk rock MBA who just really does a cursory search, I think True Rock and Roll Stories, he does a little bit more than Wikipedia. Like he'll look into the just below the surface information and give you the basic ideas of the history of some rock bands and stuff. He talked about the YouTube video is called Deep Blue Something. Whatever happened to the band behind Breakfast at Tiffany's? And then it turns out, they had a one-hit wonder, and then their story is not that dramatic. It's like they had this one hit, it worked out really well for them, and they knew they were never going to have another big hit again, so most of the guys from the band went on to work in music production. They were like, this isn't going to maintain. They knew this wasn't going to sustain into a career for them as a band, so they all pivoted into other careers in music. Good for them. Really good for them. to sort of be like, some bands, like the tragic story of a one-hit wonder is you have the one hit and then they keep working and working, trying to get another hit, and it never works out, and people make fun of them for it. But they just kind of saw the writing was on the wall for themselves as a band.
Like how Chubby Checker had 15 different versions of the twist.
Let's twist for a fourth time, baby. Remember when we twisted just last year, where we're twisting again, and it's number 6. Yeah. We had a whole Chubby Checker marathon where we listened to all the different versions. It's the Halloween twist.
Yeah. Is that all you have for us today, Dan?
I found some punk and metalish covers of Breakfast at Tiffany's by Deep Blue something, but I don't know. I don't feel like talking about it. I guess we got to learn a little bit about the timpani, and then we're done.
Okay.
Do you want to learn a little bit about the timpani drum?
Sure.
A timpani or kettle drum, also simply informally called a timp, which almost sounds like a problematic word, are musical instruments in the percussion family. A type of drum categorized as a hemispherical drum. They consist of a membrane called a head stretched over. Why are all the...
Sounds dirty.
Yeah, why are all the vernacular of drums so disgusting? Stretched over the head of a large bowl traditionally made of copper. Thus, timpanis are an example of kettle drums, also known as vessel drums and semi-spherical drums. This drum's just got so many names, whose body is similar to a section of a sphere whose cut conforms the head. Most modern timpanis are pedal timpani and can be tuned quickly and accurately to specific pitches by skilled players through the use of movable foot pedals. Ooh, do you think that gets Matt Hoops all excited?
Yep.
He's like, ooh, a pedal drum. I'm real excited now. They are played by striking the head with a specialized drumstick called a timpani stick or a timpani mallet. No, but everything about the timpani's got 100. Every piece has got 100 different names. No one can agree. It's called this. It's called that. Timpanis evolved from military drums to become a staple of the classical orchestra by the last third of the 18th century. Today, they are used in many types of ensembles, including concert bands, marching bands, orchestras, and even some rock bands, such as Relient K. Which, by the way, I guess there might be there's apparently timpanis. I can imagine where they are. I can't literally think of the moment where they are, but there are timpanis in Deathbed. There are timpanis used in Deathbed. So, Jessica, of the 2 major Relient K tracks that use timpani, which is your favorite? Breakfast at Timpani's or Deathbed?
Breakfast at Timpani's.
And one's a super long song and one's a really short skit. How do you feel about skits in albums overall? Do you have any favorite skits from albums?
Ooh, I would really have to think about that. Now I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that in quite some time, actually. That was sort of a 90s staple of a thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a thing that happens every once in a while.
Well, well, look at Tickets to My Downfall, so.
Right. Give me some doop doops. Doop doop doop. Well, adjacent to that, I was also thinking of the interludes in Blink-182's 2003 album, because they are so skippable. They don't offend me as deeply as Breakfast at Tiffany's, but the 2 interludes in the self-untitled Blink-182 album, there's the Fallen interlude, right? That's like the one that's like, it's just like a hip-hop beat. It's like clearly Travis, like, okay, Travis, here you go. You can do your hip-hop beat. And then what's the other one called? What's that one called? It almost offends me as much as Breakfast at Timpani's, because it's this one. I don't know if you ever heard this. Stockholm Syndrome interlude. Are you familiar with this?
I've missed you very, very much since that last
No.
night we were together,
So this is the intro to Stockholm Syndrome.
my dearest.
But I remember the first time I heard
I've missed you very, very much since
the 2003 Blink-182 album. How long is this track? It's a minute and a half. and it's just this piano and wind going, and it's this voice going, "I think of you every day." It's like she's reading a letter.
Big D has some.
Big D has a bunch of those. But when I would hear this Blink-182 interlude, Stockholm Syndrome interlude, because like I didn't know Blink-182 was kind of done with like the farts and disgusting jokes. I was like, where's the punchline? Where's the thing where she like flushes a toilet at the end or something? And it's like, no, it's just like Blink-182 being all like The Cure and all heartfelt and all deep and emotional and stuff. I was like,
I don't know if I go that far.
Yeah, I don't know, or artsy, like trying to be artsy, which now is my favorite thing about Tom DeLonge. I don't know if I feel like this was probably written by Tom DeLonge, because my favorite thing about Tom DeLonge is he is like this cornerstone of like disgusting sex jokes and like heartfelt attempts at art. He's like this dude bro who's like also this class who wants to be a classical artist in the forms of the things he does. And it's such a dichotomy of not styles but of philosophies in this one guy, and he believes in aliens, so it's like very interesting. Anyway, that's another thing I think of in interludes. Yeah, Big D and the Kids Table do a lot of little interludes, and I'm not even thinking of musical interludes, but just like skits and bits and like atmospheric setups and stuff. There's To Hell with the Devil opens with like sounds of hell. It's like I don't know. It starts with like some Dante's Inferno stuff, and then To Hell with the Devil starts.
I used to put on mix CDs. I would put in like little sound bites from like things that I like that 70s show or Twin Peaks or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Mallrats soundtrack, which we got to do as a Patreon episode sometime. The Mallrats soundtrack has clips from the movie. So does the Clerks soundtrack, which I never owned, but I did own the Mallrats soundtrack. So I don't know. Wasn't there something better? Did they have anything better on deck? Did Relient K have any better comedy bit,
no, they didn't
interstitial
have kids
joke
on the street
idea?
Yet. Not for another year.
There could have been some better joke, some better thing to do, but instead we got Breakfast at Timpani's. Personally, my bottom tier Relient K track of all time.
So Dan, do you like this song more, less, or the same?
I guess I like it technically less, because I hadn't spent any time thinking about this track for the last several years, and even when we almost did this song earlier in the history of the podcast, I didn't listen to it when we almost did it those times. So it was always probably just in my head as like, oh yeah, that's that really dumb, badly executed joke, but I just forgot how awful it is until we listened to it. Especially when it's just like clink, 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 clink. Like how many people are in that room? April's scared again.
Poor April.
How many people are in that room having breakfast at Timpani's, and why are they just going so fast with the fork? It's just this the whole time.
I'm really sorry to anybody wearing headphones listening to this.
I'm sorry if you wear headphones and you listen to Breakfast at Timpani's.
I like it about the same. I didn't really think much about this song before.
Get out of my house.
I didn't really think much about this song before outside of the title, and I'll continue to do that.
Well, thanks very much for listening. I'm sorry if we've lost all of the big Breakfast at Timpani's fans, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Be safe out there and have a great week.